Today, we're diving into an idea about learning that's, well, it's pretty counterintuitive. We're going to unpack the motivation paradox, this fascinating theory that dissatisfaction, not feeling good, is what actually fuels our desire to learn.
Think about it. From the second you become a parent or a teacher, you hear the same thing over and over. Praise your kids, build their confidence, make them feel satisfied with what they've done. I mean, it's the very cornerstone of positive parenting, right? But what if all that praise, all that satisfaction, is actually shutting down their natural built-in drive to learn more?
So, to really get to the bottom of this puzzle, we're not going to start in a classroom. Nope. Our investigation begins with a tiny, really powerful clue that's hidden deep inside our own DNA.
All right, let me introduce you to the DRD4/7R variant. It's a super common variation of a gene that's involved in building our brain's dopamine receptors. Now, you've probably heard of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, but really its main job is to manage reward and motivation. And this little gene variant, it's the key to unlocking a totally different way of thinking about what truly drives us.
Okay, so what does this gene actually do? The answer is absolutely crucial for building our case for this new way of looking at motivation.
So, this busts a huge myth right here. It's not that people with this variant have less dopamine. Their brain is pumping out the same amount. The difference is in the receptors. Think of them like landing pads for the dopamine. For people with the variant, those landing pads send a weaker signal. What that means is, for the exact same experience, they get a lower sense of reward. Biologically speaking, they are just harder to satisfy.
So just try to imagine feeling perpetually not quite there yet. Now, the science suggests this isn't a bad thing. It's not like being unhappy. A better way to describe it is a constant motivational tension. It's not a flaw or some problem that needs fixing. It's a built-in biological engine that's always pushing for something more.
Okay, so we've got this internal state of being harder to satisfy. How does that actually show up in the real world? This is where it gets really interesting. This internal state, it manifests as a behavior we all know and value: intense curiosity.
Let's just walk through the logic here. It all starts with the biology. You're just harder to satisfy. This creates that psychological feeling of motivational tension. And to get rid of that tension, your brain starts seeking out stronger, newer, more interesting information. And what does that look like from the outside? It looks like hyper-curiosity. This relentless drive to explore, to ask why, to figure things out.
And this gets us to the very heart of what curiosity really is. It's not just some casual interest. It's a very specific feeling, a kind of mental itch that tells you, hey, your map of the world has a hole in it. And that feeling creates this intense drive to go out and find the missing piece of the puzzle.
Once you start seeing curiosity as an itch that needs scratching, it completely changes how you view the whole learning process. It actually flips the entire goal of education on its head.
So often, we think of learning as something we do to get a reward, right? A good grade, a gold star, some praise. But from this scientific perspective, that is completely backwards. The real purpose of learning is to resolve that internal unease of not knowing something. The reward isn't the prize you get at the end. The reward is the relief of finally scratching that cognitive itch.
Which, of course, leads us to a really fascinating and honestly a kind of uncomfortable question. If this feeling of not knowing enough, this dissatisfaction, is the very fuel for the learning engine, what happens when we jump in to provide satisfaction? What happens when we praise a child and tell them, "Great job, you're done"?
The answer to that question is really the heart of this entire explainer. And I've got to warn you, it might just challenge some of your most deeply held beliefs about teaching, parenting, and how we learn. This is it. This is the logical conclusion of everything we've talked about. If the drive to learn comes from the unease of not knowing, then giving too much satisfaction too early is like pouring water on a fire. It actually kills the very motivation we're trying to build in the first place.
And what's really shocking is just how common these motivation killers are. Giving the answer away too quickly instead of letting someone struggle with it. Offering a prize for a simple task, which just shifts the focus from curiosity to the reward. Using praise that basically signals, okay, good job, you can stop now. Or asking those simple questions that have only one right answer. All these things cut short that beautiful, productive motivational tension.
Now, to be perfectly clear, this isn't about making kids feel bad. Not at all. It's about understanding the real mechanics of motivation. So, how do we use this knowledge to become better learners, better educators, to actually ignite that engine instead of accidentally stalling it?
This right here shows the huge shift in thinking. The old way of doing things saw dissatisfaction as a problem to be solved. The goal was to make students feel satisfied. But this new, science-backed view sees it completely differently. Dissatisfaction isn't the problem. It's the fuel. So the goal isn't to get rid of it, but to maintain a healthy level of unease that keeps that curiosity engine running.
So let's just reframe this whole thing. That feeling of unease or dissatisfaction, it isn't the enemy of learning. It is the engine. It's the very spark of curiosity. It is the neurological reason why we explore, why we discover, and why we create. To praise it away is to silence the very impulse that drives all of human progress. And that leaves us with one last, provocative question to take with you. Instead of always asking, how can I make my students feel satisfied, maybe the better question is this. How can we, as parents, teachers, and even as learners ourselves, intentionally design moments of healthy dissatisfaction? How can we use mysteries, bigger questions, and strategic challenges to spark a genuine, unstoppable, lifelong love of learning? It's really something to think about.